On the morning of March 12, 2011, in Bethesda, Maryland, the manager of Lululemon, Rachel Oertli, I'm sorry if I mispronounce her name, arrived just before 8 a.m. to open up the store for the day. As she pulls out her keys to unlock the door, she's taken aback because the doors were already unlocked and open. Shrugging it off as odd that the doors were already opened and unlocked, she simply thought that it was just another employee within the store already. Little did she know that once she walked into that store, she would come across one of the most brutal murders ever. This is the story of the Lululemon murder. Before we get any further into this video, I'm Courtney Elise, aka Court Crimes TV, and welcome to my channel. If you happen to enjoy, please like, subscribe, and comment. Let's get into the video. On the morning of March 12, 2011, Rachel Oertli, the manager of Lululemon, arrives to the store to start her shift. Like I said in the beginning of this video, she's already kind of taken aback because the doors to the store are already open and unlocked. Once inside the store, she notices that the lights were already on and the store is a complete mess. She notices that there's blood on the floor, that there's chunks of hair everywhere, there's stuff just shattered and just displaced everywhere throughout the store. Seeing that the store is a complete mess, she calls out to see if there are any other employees within the store, and this is when she hears moaning coming from the back. When she hears the moaning, she immediately takes off running outside, and this is when she just so happens to see a man walking by and asks him to go inside because she heard moaning to make sure if everything is okay, if the coast is clear for her to go inside. He agrees, and Rachel decides she's gonna stay outside. Not so long after he went inside, he yells from the back of the store for Rachel to call the police immediately.
County 911, what is the emergency? There's two people in the back of my store. One person seems dead and the other person is breathing. Door was open this morning. I think one of my managers came in to open it. Someone tied her up. I need an ambulance right away.
He said he saw one body face down, obviously deceased, and another body that was tied up in the bathroom, still alive. When police would arrive to the scene, they would find Jayna Murray, 30, dead, and they would find Brittany Norwood, 28, alive, but she had extensive injuries to her face, cuts all over her face, and her hands were tied, and her feet were tied while she was laying in the bathroom. Brittany was then rushed to the hospital while police stayed back at the scene. The store was a mess. You know, police had to rope the store off, obviously, because it was a murder scene. It was an obvious struggle. They found blood everywhere. They found chunks of hair everywhere. They found two bloody footprints. One was a smaller set of footprints and another one was for a size 14 shoe. These shoes were still found within the store. It also appeared that one of the girls tried to escape through the back exit of the door but was pulled back in. It was an obvious struggle to survive. Police suspected this to be an obvious robbery because the safes were empty and the tills and the cash registers were empty. Later that day, on March 12th, police would speak to Brittany while she was still at the hospital. While at the hospital, Brittany would tell police that the night before, she and Jayna were both working the night shift, and at 9:45 p.m., they both would close the store and go their separate ways. Shortly after she had left, Brittany realized she had forgot her wallet with her bus pass at the store. She called Jayna to see if she can go back to the store and unlock the doors so she can hurry up and go back in, get her wallet, and leave. Jayna agreed and they met back up at the store at around 10:05 p.m. But unfortunately, this is when two masked men slipped in right behind them. Jayna was then beaten and dragged to the back of the store where she was then, unfortunately, assaulted. Brittany was also assaulted, was called racial slurs, and they dragged her in the back of the store and zip tied her arms and zip tied her legs together. Once the two men were done with Brittany and Jayna, they emptied out the safes and they emptied out the registers and left. Jayna and Brittany were both brutally beaten, both assaulted, but unfortunately Jayna got the worst of it. Jayna had over 331 different wounds all over her body. She had been assaulted with at least 5 different tools that was found in a red toolbox next to her. She was assaulted with a box cutter, with rope, with a hammer, with just anything that they found in this toolbox that ironically belonged to Lululemon. Jayna was a fighter. Jayna put up an intense fight to survive. Most of her wounds were defensive, but the fatal blow that unfortunately took her life was a stab wound to the back of her neck that severed her spine and went straight through to her brain. Brittany, although she survived this traumatic experience, her wounds weren't nearly as bad as Jayna's. Brittany had cuts to her face and to her forehead and to her arms. She didn't take the beating like Jayna did. There were a lot of questions around the town of Bethesda because this was a very luxury town. This was a luxury, strip mall, you could say, where they worked. And there were a lot of questions throughout the town as to who would do this. The police were asking questions like why, who would attack these two young women, like what was the reason. Police would start their search for the perpetrators. They would go all around to the stores and they would ask the store employees and owners if there were any two men who came in to buy ski masks. The store owners of Lululemon would offer a $125,000 reward to anyone who could lead the police to the killers. Police did, however, get some very valuable information from the Apple employees next door. According to an Apple employee, she said she heard a woman's voice who was struggling say, "Don't do this. Talk to me. What's going on?" She also stated that she heard lots of shouting, lots of grunting going on for like at least 10 minutes straight. That same employee later said she heard the same voice say, "God help me. Please help me." The Apple employees would later face a lot of backlash and criticism from the community because there's actual footage of the two Apple employees that talked to the police actually listening to all this commotion and would eventually turn out to be Jayna's murder happening. Like, they're just standing there listening and they never called the police, which is extremely weird. Besides police talking to the Apple employees and getting statements from them, CCTV footage would actually catch two men fitting the description of what Brittany described the men as. They were dressed in all black and they just so happened to be walking past the Lululemon store during the time or around the time when everything happened. Police would track these two men down, but they were unfortunately and fortunately just two innocent men getting off from work that happened to be walking past where the murder occurred. Since those two guys were, released and found innocent, police would look at Jayna's car that was parked 3 blocks away from the store. Police would take Jayna's car in for a forensic examination and they would find blood from Jayna and Brittany within the car. Police found this to be extremely suspicious because how could both of their blood be in the car when Jayna was at this time murdered and Brittany was tied up. Her hands and legs were tied up and she was in the store. Like, they didn't understand how this was possible. Police go to question Brittany about this and Brittany explains it away as, oh, Jayna's car was initially parked in front of the store and they were initially just gonna run in, go and get the wallet and come out, but that's when the robbers came in and did everything they did. But the robbers became increasingly worried about Jayna's car being parked in front of a closed store and in an empty parking lot. They didn't want to bring any unwanted attention to the store. So after brutally attacking Brittany and Jayna and killing Jayna, the robbers and killers untie Brittany and tell Brittany to go get in Jayna's car and drive it 3 blocks down away from the store and then come back in. Brittany said when she was moving Jayna's car 3 blocks down from Lululemon, she said she saw police, but she didn't tell police anything anything because she was afraid for her life. She said the robbers told her that they had her address, they knew her parents' name, they knew everything about her.
Prior to him sexually assaulting me and zip tying me, they made me move her car.
Okay.
I know where her car is. And they seemed to know where it was, where she was parked.
Okay.
They said, where are her keys? I have no idea. One of them punched me in my head and made me look through her coat and her bag for them. When I finally found them, they said if I was to pass anyone and open my mouth, I can consider myself dead. And that one of them would be watching the entire time. And I honestly don't remember the exact lot, but they said to cross, it's almost like on the other side of Wisconsin or something.
Okay.
From that street. I remember seeing a cop and I was just too scared to even flag him down, do anything.
Was that like when you left the store or when you were parked?
When I left the store.
So when you first left the store, okay.
And he was driving past in his car?
I think so.
Okay.
It doesn't make any sense, okay? You know, at this point, police are now becoming increasingly suspicious of Brittany. Let's just get into Brittany's background. Back in the day, Brittany used to be an amazing soccer player. She even got a scholarship, a full-ride scholarship to Stony Brook's University. She ended up getting expelled and her scholarship thrown out because Brittany was a kleptomaniac. She was a klepto, severely. That was her biggest downfall. Her teammates, her classmates, her roommates all said that Brittany was a good person. She just loved to steal. So much so that it ended friendships. It ended her future because she got expelled from the university. And she just couldn't control herself. Back to the murder, police start to become increasingly suspicious of Brittany. One of the detectives who questioned Brittany numerous times kept saying that something in the back of his mind was telling him something's not right. Something's not adding up with this whole story. Also, medical examinations have been performed on both Brittany and Jayna, and it came back that there was no signs of sexual assault. Also, remember how I said that police found 2 sets of footprints, one of them being a size 14. Well, those size 14 shoes matched, like the footprints matched to the shoes that were found within the store that are used to try on clothes at Lululemon. And the other set of footprints belonged to Brittany. Also, there were teeth marks on the zip ties that were used to zip tie Brittany, meaning that she tied herself up. She used her teeth to zip tie herself. Police also questioned why all of the murder weapons that were used were found within the store. All the weapons belonged to Lululemon. They just couldn't understand why a murderer didn't come with his own weapons. Why did they find all these weapons within the store? Suspicious. Police finally had enough of Brittany and they flat out told her, I don't believe you. Brittany would become increasingly defensive because she's like, how can you not believe me? I was injured too. And this is when she was like, I want to go home, and the police were like, nah, you stay in here.
Comes a point sometimes and we have to break down and get everything off of our chest. You gotta tell us what really happened.
I'm telling you.
Because I know what really happened.
I told you what really happened.
No, what you've done is you've concocted an incredible story that doesn't make any doggone sense.
No.
With the injuries that you have, they're self-inflicted. Yeah, they're self-inflicted. You did this to yourself. It's incredible that you want me or anyone to believe that you're lying like this overnight, haven't moved, okay? That's posed. Nobody in the world is going to believe this story. No one. He doesn't believe it. My boss doesn't believe it. When I tell your brother and your sister, they ain't gonna believe it. And your mother and your father, they're gonna say, bullshit.
Can I go home?
In a little bit, but how did it start? Come on, let's get this over with. Come on, baby. Let's get this over with. Nah.
Brittany was then arrested and charged with first-degree murder of Jayna.
Jayna Murray was laid to rest this weekend after being killed in the yoga store where she worked. Now, in a twist few saw coming, her co-worker has been charged with murder. ABC's John Hendren has more on the clues that finally tipped off investigators.
As we began analyzing the forensic evidence and looked at the medical reports, it was not supporting what Ms. Norwood had told us.
Norwood will appear in court tomorrow. Law enforcement experts say police will be combing through her past, looking to make sure nothing like this has ever happened to anyone else who was around her.
What really happened on the night of March 11, 2011 is terrifying, all around sad, and just horrible. Before the night of the murder, the managers and employees of Lululemon gathered around and had a meeting because the managers had suspected some employees were stealing from the store. They just didn't have any proof. And during this meeting, they told employees and managers, if you catch anybody stealing, report it. On the night of March 11, 2011, Brittany and Jayna were both working the closing shift. At the end of each shift, Lululemon had made this new rule that at the end of each shift, you were supposed to check each other's bags to make sure nobody was stealing. And on the night of March 11, 2011, before, they were about to leave, Jayna had checked Brittany's bag, and this is when Jayna had found a pair of leggings in Brittany's bag with the tag still attached. When Jayna confronted Brittany about this, Brittany tried to say that she had bought the pants earlier, but the employee didn't take the tags off. Brittany is just a terrible liar. With the robbers untied her and let her go move Jayna's car 3 blocks away, and now she's saying that the person did check her out and she bought the pants, but they left all the security tags on it. I mean, who she thinks she gonna fool with this? Like, seriously. Brittany could tell that Jayna was not buying her story. So this is when Brittany concocted this plan. Because Brittany, like I said before, Brittany was already caught stealing before at her university, and she got kicked out, and it practically ruined her life. And she didn't want to get caught with this again. So Brittany lured Jayna back into Lululemon by saying she had forgotten her wallet. I'm assuming Brittany tried to talk Jayna out of, reporting her to the managers so she wouldn't lose her job. But unfortunately for Brittany, Jayna had already called management and told them that she had caught Brittany stealing. And this is when things unfortunately took a deadly turn. Brittany would go on to brutally attack Jayna. She beat Jayna. She stabbed Jayna. This is when she stabbed her in the back of the neck. They say once you get stabbed right there in the back of the neck and it severs your spine, you're not living long. She was dragging Jayna throughout the store so hard that this is where the clumps of hair were found. She ripped pieces of hair out of Jayna's scalp. Once Jayna was dead, this is when Brittany would leave Lululemon, jump in Jayna's car, move it 3 blocks down, and she would sit in the car for 90 minutes trying to come up with a plan to save herself. Once back in the store, this is when Brittany would put her plan into play. She would go into the store, she would put on the size 14 trainers, she would jump in Jayna's blood, walk around the store to make it look like the intruders were in there, the murderers were in there. Then she went to Jayna's body, Jayna's corpse, cut a hole in the private area and cut a hole in her private area to make it look like they were assaulted. And this is when she sliced open her forehead, beat herself up, and then she went into the bathroom, zip tied herself up with her hands and legs, and laid there until the next morning when the manager would come in. Brittany was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. It's so sad that Jayna lost her life because of this klepto. And it's sad that Brittany thought she had to take it this far so she wouldn't get caught. Like, I don't understand killers, and I really don't want to understand killers. But what makes you think killing someone to cover up your sins is gonna make everything better? Like, I don't understand it. Jayna was described as such an adventurous, outgoing, smart woman. Just a few months before her horrible murder, Jayna went bungee jumping. You know, Jayna was in school at Johns Hopkins for 2 master degrees. You know, Jayna was an all-around just wonderful person. And for her to lose her life in the way she did is just sad. And what's crazy, you know what's crazy is that Brittany actually tried to go back to court.
A woman convicted of a gruesome murder inside a local Lululemon store wants a new trial. Brittany Norwood maintains investigators never informed her of her rights, and her attorneys argue that testimony in this case was flawed.
You know, to get her sentencing appealed or something. But the judge was like, no, like, you crazy, girl. Like, you staying in. I don't care if the police didn't do this or not. You're found guilty. You know, all evidence points to you. All of this could have been avoided. You know, Brittany was just a psychopathic kleptomaniac, and if she could have just avoided her urges, she wouldn't be in this predicament. Jayna would still be alive. She would have probably 9 out of 10 achieved her goals, you know, graduating from Johns Hopkins, but her life was taken away so tragically. Rest in peace, Jayna.